Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory be unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakar Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that rule well. Peace, salutations, and blessings be unto the hopeful elect, pushing his truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the globe, in the sincere hopes of being delivered in these last days. Alright, this is the brother Yakanan from the GMS England branch, and this is going to serve as an in-transit edition video. Lord willing, it'll be edifying unto you brothers out there and few sisters listening and also learning, okay? And you know, something that was just on my mind, you know, some moments ago, is the importance, you know, by all means necessary, staying shrouded, you know, in the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Alright, because we're living in a very, very heavy time, you know, to say the least. And we're living in the time, as I always say, of the downfall of Esau Edom, you know, and his kingdom, beginning, you know, with their elites. So there's a lot of things transpiring upon the earth. There's a lot of psyops being conducted. There's a lot of deception being performed, you know, in the minds of the people. You know, you have this whole thing with AI, and some of these AI clips that are floating around on the net, you actually can't tell the difference from whether it's AI or whether it's actually reality. All right, and that's part of, you know, the miracles on the left-hand side of Esau Edom. Okay, so we got to be very circumspect, like how it outlines in Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 15. You know, especially in these last days, we got to be circumspect. Okay, we have to be, you know, constantly questioning, you know, the information that we're taking in. You know, constantly, you know, using, you know, the tools that we have in the spirit of discernment to decipher, you know, what's actually going on, all right, as deception grows in this wicked kingdom, okay? And, you know, as the scriptures tell us, if it were possible, they will deceive, you know, the very elect. Now, we know about, you know, Project Bluebeam, we know about all of these things, and we also know that those that are in the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai are not going to be deceived by the wicked devices, you know, Esau Edom, okay? Because we are in the spirit and because we are armed spiritually with the word as our offense and of our defense, you know, in these last days, man. So the word, you know, Yahweh Shai is everything, man. Okay, and that's why it's so important, again, you know, to be shrouded in the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. And as it tells us in the book of Ephesians, you know, to put on the whole armor. Okay, we need that armor, especially in these last days. We have to keep our mind, you know, in the scriptures, because the scriptures warns us about all of these things that's transpiring upon the earth right now. All right, it tells us in Daniel's the 12th chapter, you know, that knowledge shall be increased, and we're living in that time now where knowledge is being increased in every way, shape, and form. Okay, and this shows you that we're living in the time of the end. Okay, major deception, you know, is being, you know, pushed by the wicked elites. Okay, major deception, man. So how much worse is it going to be in the coming, you know, weeks, months, and, you know, Lord willing, you know, not years to come. Okay, but we know that, you know, this kingdom is coming up to a place of, you know, it being a wrap. All right, now they have their, you know, agenda 2030, but I can't see this place going on until 2030. Okay, I can't see that at all, because you got to look at what's transpiring right now, and we're always in that spirit because we're hastening, you know, the coming of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Okay, now we could be out of here, you know, the beginning of next year, we could be out here mid next year. all right? But you always have to be, you know, watching. And the reason we say these things is because we're measuring the time, as pursuing to 2 Esdras, the 9th chapter, as I always quote. Okay, we're constantly measuring the time. We're constantly seeing how particular boxes of prophecy and leading up to major prophecies are getting ticked. Okay, you can see Jacob's trouble, you know, has already begun. Okay, Northern and Southern Kingdom is being persecuted out there in Babylon the Great, which is America. Okay, so we're in a very, very heavy time. There's a lot going on and it's hard to keep up. Okay, but through the Spirit, you know, we do keep up. Because, you know, we are, you know, the watchmen of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, and that's our job. Our job is to constantly watch and see what's happening upon the earth and filter those events through the Holy Scriptures, man. That's why we are always watching. We're always, you know, making videos. We're always reading articles. We're always, you know, watching news pieces on what's transpiring upon the earth, because that's the job of a watchman. Okay, because we're essentially watching the downfall in real time of the kingdom of Esau Edom. Okay, and many people know that there's a major shift happening upon the earth. A lot of people are privy to that now. Okay, because it's undeniable. All right, you have to be a complete, you know, darkened dimwit to not know that we're living in a major time where a major shift is happening upon the earth. All right, some people know it's happening, but they can't explain, you know, why it's happening or what's going to be the end result. But we know why it's happening, and we know the end result, which is the downfall of Esau Edom and the rise of Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, beginning with the elect, the Israelites. Okay, and we understand that Yahweh Shai is coming back. We understand that there's going to be a World War III. Okay, but before that, you're going to have the mandatory implementation of the MOTB, the Revelation 13 and 16. We know that, all right, because prophecy tells us so. The words of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai tell us that these things are going to happen, and they're going to happen in the very near future, because we already have the signs and we already have particular boxes ticked to allow that system, you know, that NW to the O system, you know, to thrive. All right, particular boxes have already been ticked. Okay, to allow that system to thrive and to allow it to breathe and exist in these last days. What do you think the whole CBDCs was all about? Okay, what do you think the talk of social credit score systems is all about? What do you think, you know, these digital IDs is all about? What do you think all of these things are leading to? Okay, they're leading to total control. Okay, they're leading to that CHIP, the CHIP. That's what it's all leading to, which is going to tick that box of, again, Revelation 13 and 16. Okay, so we're living in a time of the end. All right, so we're living in a very, very beautiful time, man. So again, you know, I go back to my, you know, initial statement. You know, by all means necessary, you know, it's important to stay locked into the Spirit. Stay engaged to biblical prophecy. Stay engaged in what's happening in an economic, you know, world, in a political world. Stay engaged and, you know, privy to all of these things to the best of your ability. Okay, because like Elder Apostle Tahar says, you know, if you miss one day, you miss a lot. You know, roughly paraphrasing what the Apostle says. Okay, there's a lot transpiring. So now more than ever, it's very important to be engaged and to understand what's happening, because major shifts and major changes are going to carry on to be rolled out, you know, in these last days. So you don't want to get left behind. Okay, and we already know the scoffers are going to get left behind, man. You know, because they've been scoffing, they've been laughing and, you know, mocking us, you know, for the longest time. Which, you know, really, you're trying to, well, what you're doing is mocking, you know, the servants of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. Okay? You're trying to mock the servants of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, and there's going to be a price to pay, because ultimately you're mocking the words of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. Okay? And as the scriptures tell us, you know, he that despises the word of the Lord, you know, you're going to be destroyed. Okay, and many have despised the words of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. But what's being confirmed in these last days? Our faith. Okay, our faith is actually being confirmed. The things that we've been saying and preaching through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai is being confirmed in these last days. Okay, so how heavy is that? All right, so and these scoffers are gonna start disappearing. All right, they're gonna start disappearing, man, through the Spirit, because they ain't gonna have nothing more to say, because everything is coming to pass. Prophecies are coming to pass in these last days. All right, this beast system that we've been talking about, all right, it's now being implemented into your life. So what left more do you have to say, except for, hey, the prophets of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai were right. You know, Ezekiel 33 and 33. That's all we got to say at the end of the day, man. Because all of these things are coming to light, and it's undeniable. All right? So we got to stay, you know, plugged into the Spirit. We got to stay circumspect, again, as pursuant to Ephesians 5 and 15 on down. And we got to stay engaged, you know, on the highest level in these last days. All right? You got, you know, all these psyops. You got, you know, these predictive programming, you know, happening on a mass scale, you know, with certain processes and things that's happening in society. And ultimately, the people are being trained to accept this system, you know, through media, through movies, through TV series, okay? All of these things, man, all right? So, Lord willing, this brief lesson was edifying, and until next time, I'll say shalom.